We've got one more session to go before your break today, which is a fireside chat. So we have Abby Kearns, who is CTO at Puppet, and your moderator will be Charlie Berg, who is a Fractional CTO. They are going to be chatting about transformation work, the hard thing about hard things.
Hey everybody, I'm Charlie Berg. Hello from across the pond. Today we're going to be chatting with Abby Kearns, who's the CTO of Puppet. Just a little bit of administrativa, if you have any questions, just hit the Ask the Question button at the bottom and we'll try and get to as many as we can. Just by way of who I am, I'm a 40-year veteran of the industry, 20 plus startups and 7 exits. But today we're going to be talking to Abby, focused on her. Abby is another veteran of the tech industry, and her career spanned product marketing, management, tech, and consulting. She has worked in Fortune 500s and startups alike. At Puppet, she leads the vision direction of the current and future enterprise product portfolio. Prior to Puppet, she was the executive director of the Cloud Foundry Foundation. And welcome, Abby.
Thank you for having me, Charlie. So much fun to be here today.
Cool. So listen, I understand that you're going through a transformation right now at Puppet. Can you tell us a little bit about what prompted that change and where you are in that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. So Puppet is for those of you that are not familiar, we are a 12-year-old company throughout our history, have had a very strong focus on DevOps, and we're one of the earliest platforms and products in the config management space. And we, have a fantastic product and a fantastic history. But one of the things that we really recognized is the way we think about infrastructure, particularly in enterprise infrastructure, has changed a lot over the last several years. We've seen, over the last 5 years, we've seen a rise in open source cloud native architectures. Kubernetes came into existence. We've really leaned more into the idea of ephemeral infrastructure and ephemeral workloads. And so for that, the way that we think about our products and the way our customers want to use our products has changed. And as such, it really required us to both really look really deeply at both what is our product, what does our portfolio look like, and how do they work in this new hybrid estate. But also the way we work really needed to change, which is we had largely one product that was it's a great product, continues to be a great product, but it's also very big and it's very complex. And so the teams, the structure, and the way we work were really oriented around the way that product was developed and managed. But as we continue to shift the way that we think about that technology stack, and we shift the way that we think about the development and quick iteration on additional new products, really required us to get a lot more oriented towards lean practices. And so what we've undergone over the last year is a shift in our product strategy and our technology strategy. We're starting to move to a stronger microservices-based architecture. We're replatforming on top of Kubernetes. And at the end of the day, we're also really driving more consistent lean practices across the entirety of the organization, which means at the end of the day, we're really looking at, having those agile teams, but really iterating quickly on feedback from customers and driving those fast feedback loops. And so that's been part of the work we started last year. We are obviously still in the middle of that journey, but it's been great to see that really the resilience of a team, in spite of a global pandemic, have really managed to both make those changes and those adjustments and really accelerate the development, not only of new products, but the momentum around the development of this new platform.
Sounds cool. So as you make the transformation, what do you think has been your most important job as the CTO in helping to execute this transformation? Like, what's your role?
Communication. Really, that's
3 C's.
Same, right? It's just being very clear on the strategy and the vision, and really over communicating what we need to do to get there and how we're going to get there. And, I would say not just communication, but consistency in that communication is super important, because this isn't something you just say one time and it happens. It really requires, particularly when you talk about the size of our organization, it really requires engagement at all levels throughout the organization, and then bringing everyone along on that journey with you, which comes down to communication.
So what tools do you use? I mean, talk about a little bit of techniques or tools that you use to help with communication. I mean, both what is it you're trying to communicate specifically? How do you do the communication? How do you get allies in progressing the transformation?
No, that's a really great question. I'm going to answer those in reverse order, because I do think the one thing you hit on is allies, those agents and those people that can really help you catalyze the change you need to make. Because this isn't like, I feel like one of the great misnomers of leadership is, when you're in leadership now, everyone will listen to you. And I find the inverse to be true.
No one listens to you.
Like, no one listens to you. And so you really need to figure out who are those change agents in the organization that can help you catalyze that. And so identifying change agents and the people in the organization, throughout the organization, that can help with this, really both communicate, broadly across the organization, but then really bringing in those change agents early and often as part of your, essentially what I'm describing is organizational change management. But at the end of the day, just bringing the people along with you and bringing people to the forefront that can help you with that message and help drive clarity. So, when I think about communication patterns and mediums, I try to layer a lot of different things on. There are all hands with everyone. There are smaller group forums and AMAs, Ask Me Anythings, with smaller subgroups. There's written communication. There is a cadence of written communication, not just when the announcement goes out to what are the reinforcements, what are the specifics we need to call out over time. I also do a weekly wrap-up email, but that's also where I reinforce anything that has come out during the week or risen up during the week that we want to make sure that everyone is aware of. So it's really about having that cadence and that pattern of communication across a variety of mediums. And then, of course, Slack for more open questions and really to bring up anything that bubbles up into Slack and into the larger forum, so that people can see what do people care about, what are people concerned about, and where there might be opportunities for us to provide greater support.
Yeah, I get it. And so a lot of this is about communication kind of all the way down the tree in the organization. How do you motivate or protect people, giving them the space to speak up about what concerns they might have? Because and frequently in big organizations that can get squashed.
Yeah, it's so true. And even in small organizations, Charlie, if that support isn't felt there, or there isn't the practice around that, I spend a lot of time talking about psychological safety, and really how do we create the space and the comfort level for people to feel like we can have debate and discussion, and you can raise concerns, which also bleed into some of the other common themes we talk about in technology overall, which is, the ability to fail fast, right? Well, you can't fail fast if you're not allowed to fail. And if you're not allowed to fail, True. That means there isn't the safety to actually raise concerns. And the downstream ramifications of that become so much greater than just, I couldn't speak my mind. It has it has the potential of really cutting down on any innovation, any opportunity to raise concerns around performance or quality, or any opportunity for you to improve the product overall. And so, we spend a lot of time as a team talking about psychological safety and enablement, and we do workshops with the goal of really helping people feel comfortable about raising their hand, speaking up and speaking out, and helping us be a better organization.
Yeah, I really understand. I really get the safety that you need to be able to make mistakes. I was a jazz musician for 40 years, and Miles Davis once said, if you're not making mistakes on the stand, you're not creating. So he's
True.
absolutely right. And you talked about change agents. Tell me how you identify those or find those.
I have a great team of people that say, these are people that are both interested in changing the organization, but are also people in the organization that others listen to and others will go to and ask questions and for help. And as you know, in any organization, people on teams don't always go to their leader for help or questions. They go to peers, they go to trusted advisors, they go to people that have been in the company a long time. And so it's really about finding those key individuals that are those source or those arbiters of what's happening, and really make sure they feel both informed about the changes that are happening or going to happen, and and give them the space and the opportunity to give feedback and say, what, here's some of the challenges you're going to run into. How do we get ahead of that?
Cool. Yeah. So what does a successful transformation look like to you, or look like in general? And what will it look like for you at Puppet?
Well, I think that's the thing about transformation journeys. They're never done. There's never a point where we're like, done, check. We're now an innovative company. Particularly with software, you're always iterating and you're always innovating. And I think for us, it's about, hey, here's the things we need to accomplish over the next 90, 120 days that are going to put us on that long-term path. But, 6 months from now, we'll probably say, okay, we've now scaled the team out. So we're in the process of hiring a lot of people. When you bring in a lot of people, okay, we're going to have to let's reassess now. We're at a different place in our journey in 6 months. Maybe that requires some fine tuning or some editing, or, at the end of the day, iterating to make it not just a more efficient place to work and develop software and bring quality and feedback into the process, but also the way we work. How do we make it a place where people want to work? And really, honing in on that. And that's something that's constantly changing.
And do you find that as you bring in new people in the middle of the transformation, do they require special attention? Are they easier to integrate, harder?
I don't think it's any easier or harder. I think the onus is on us to be clear about not only here's where we are, but here's where we're going. And then most importantly, here's how you're going to help us, drive to that. Because I think in any transformation, whether you're new to a company or you've been there 6 years, understanding your role and where the company is going and your impact to those outcomes are really important. And I think there is a stronger need for that for someone that's new and coming in and doesn't know the lay of the land. But at the end of the day, I also think that, that's something you have to keep in mind for everyone on the team. And you have to make sure, most importantly, is, do those teams continue to feel supported as more people come in and dynamics change and dynamics shift? And how do you really adjust the teams to support that growth?
Cool. What have been the challenges in this journey you've been taking?
Well, change is hard. Not to be glib, but change is hard and people are hard, and really figuring out how to navigate that. We all come to change with different perspectives. Some of us are more adaptable to change, and change is easy, and change is like, sure, it sounds great, let's do what's next. And for others, it takes longer for them to understand, get bought into the change, and really absorb what that change means. And so I think you have to, as a leader, figure out how do you want to modulate across that? How do you help people that are, where it takes longer for them to feel comfortable with change? How do you really support their growth and their evolution? And that, sometimes can be hard to do across the span of a larger organization, and balancing that.
Cool. And what do you see as the outcome for this, and then the follow-on? In other words, you're going through this transition to meet kind of the new technical demands related to changes in technology. What do you see as the continuance of transformation at Puppet?
Well, I think we're going to always be evolving. We are a software company in a highly evolving industry, particularly enterprise infrastructure automation software. And so for us, it's really about constantly navigating both changes in the overall market and trends, as well as customers. We have a very strong focus on the largest customers in the world. And so really figuring out how to help them navigate both the changes that their organization is going through, but also how do they navigate the broader changes in the technology marketplace that exists beyond that. And so for us as a company, it's going to be constantly balancing that fine line. And both the way we engage with our customers, but even taking into consideration our product and technology strategies, those need to also walk that fine line between, are we innovative enough to keep pace with the overall market and the ecosystem, but we're not moving too quickly that we leave our customers behind. And so that's with any software company in this space, that's always a delicate line to walk. And
so there's kind of
you need to partner closely.
Sorry. So there's kind of a meta learning to this as well about, kind of what I'm taking from what you just said. There's kind of a meta learning about how to do transformation that hopefully you come out with at the end of this.
Yeah, I think a meta learning maybe, or more, I might frame it as an expectation and an empathy for change. How do we change constantly? And it's a lot like learning to do continuous learning, right? How to build continuous learning in. And, for you as an individual or an organization. And so I think it's the same thing as how do we establish a frame and a way of working so that we can constantly refresh that and revisit that and iterate on that over time. And so the goal would be to get to the point where it's not a large scale transformation, but it's just a continuous improvement over time.
Okay. Just want to get to a couple of questions, Abby. Arabella asks, what's been the biggest challenge you have faced for moving to leaner ways of working? We did talk about challenges in general, but maybe you find there are other challenges in terms of moving to a more lean model of development.
Well, I think first and foremost, it's when it's a new way of working, there's always, challenges with rolling out new ways of working with a team. So I think just really understanding and adapting to new practices. And then when I talk about leaner, and I mean it lean in the lean sense of really that quick iterative feedback, is really doing a better job of taking in customer and field feedback, absorbing that into the roadmap and the backlogs, and delivering against that in a pretty quick way. And that's a habit that we're still building, but one I think that is going to be truly a differentiator for us as a company.
Is that something about teaching the tech staff to become customer advocates as well, voice of customers across the board as well?
From our product standpoint, absolutely.
Yeah,
the product leaders are absolutely having to develop those partnerships.
Okay, cool. One more question we have from Jeff. Where does the vision that drives the transformation come from, and how do you get everyone on board with that vision? We talked a little bit about how you get people on board around communication, but we could talk a little bit about, as a CTO, what's your role in contributing to the vision, even when transformation may not be driven, for instance, out of tech?
Well, I think transformation is a byproduct of how to deliver and execute against a vision and a strategy. There's still the work of identifying what is your strategy. As a CTO, you're going to have to think in a couple of different horizons. There's the Horizon 0 to Horizon 1 strategy. What is the work we need to do over the next couple of years to really make sure that we continue to have the opportunity to be successful long-term? And what are those priorities? And then there's Horizon, 2 to 3, which is the next 3 to 5 years. Where do we want to be? And are we making the right investments that are going to allow us to deliver against that strategy over time? And the transformation piece is a byproduct of how do we do that and how do we deliver against that in an effective way? But it isn't necessarily the strategy. And really identifying those and being clear on what your hopes, dreams, and expectations are, and really kind of backing into that are the best way to achieve that.
Well, Abby, I want to thank you for joining us today. Hopefully your fire was as warm as mine. And again, thanks to you and thanks to our audience.
Thank you for having me.